Legendary host Jonathan Hutton joins us here. A legendary host Outkick 360. You see him, you know him, you love him. All right, big dog, let's get right into this. Where are you seeing the AFC? Where are you seeing the AFC playoff race? What are you seeing here?
Man, craziness, back and forth, and a bunch of good teams and not great teams. Dan, that's what I say. I don't know what you see, but I see any team can beat anyone whenever the playoffs roll around, and that includes teams that will not even get into the postseason. Like, I think seeds 8 and 9 of this year's playoff seeding could beat a 2 seed in this year's playoffs. That's how similar these teams are. And by similar, I don't necessarily mean great football. I think a lot of teams are playing really bad football, turning it over way too much. And losing games. I don't see teams winning games. And that's how I see the AFC right now.
Well, you know what? To your point, I felt like Mac Jones, and this sounds really stupid. He played in the SEC, played in the biggest games. But against our beloved Colts, he had some guys open. And I'm not going to say the moment was too big, but I felt like he wasn't good enough to get it done this year. I'm not saying he won't be. I'm just saying this year, for them being on the streak that they were on.
Well, that's going to be their one holdback, right? Or is going to be in the pressure-packed moment, and there will be some of that because on your way to the Super Bowl, you have to win multiple ways. There'll be a game that's won by the defense and a huge turnover. There will be a big special teams play that busts something open where you have short field advantage for your offense, and then there's going to come down to a drive before halftime, or a big one in the fourth quarter on a possession where your rookie quarterback or your average quarterback is going to have to step up and seize the moment. And right now, there's I can count on one hand the number of elite quarterbacks that are playing exceptional football. And then you can count on two hands the amount of quarterbacks there are that are capable of that on any given Sunday, not necessarily consistent enough to do everything that Brady and Rodgers are expected to do when the postseason rolls around. So I think Mac Jones is honestly par for the course. And I see much more realistic expectations for their defense and for the way they run the football if they can stay healthy. The Patriots are right in that same class I was just mentioning, where week in and week out, I think they can compete with just about anybody. And I also see where I could see them falling off pretty quickly in the postseason because of the rookie.
Kaharski called me a homer, and he's probably right. But I got to tell you, I like the way the Colts are playing, man. I do. You got to run the football. They can run it. Wentz, just don't let him screw it up. To your point about quarterbacks, don't let him screw it up.
Yeah, and I mean that's my one holdback. I mean, you and I chatted about a month ago on this, and this was prior to Frank Reich not giving the football to Jonathan Taylor against the game after Buffalo, where they won 41-6 or 9 or whatever it was. Against Tampa is the game we were referring to. And if they put the ball and if they go through the run game, I think Wentz can be okay. But there is a formula to that not every team can follow. You know, there are only a number of teams that can stick with the run no matter the score. The Titans could do that through Derrick Henry. They could be down 13 to 17 points, and I've seen them turn around and hand the football off. I think the Colts could do that with Jonathan Taylor because of their defense, Darius Leonard and everyone else that gets the football back for their offense. You can stick with the run, but it's few and far between, Dan. And I think Wentz, as long as it sticks through the run game, they'll be fine. But I'm with you on Wentz, given the fact that we've seen multiple times this season Frank Reich will turn around and go play action instead of handing the football off, and they put the ball in Wentz's hands. There's going to be a drive like that in the postseason when the Colts make it, because I think they will, where Wentz is going to have to take them down the field and score. And for the life of me, I can't convince myself to take the Colts because of that.
I'm watching him and I'm thinking to myself, man, if I've ever watched a modern football game, back in the day, everybody ran the ball. Now everybody throws it. I'm like, just don't throw the freaking ball. Just don't do it. Can Jonathan Taylor win the MVP?
I mean, look, there is a recipe for him to get there. He is a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year. That's the truth in all this. I don't see him winning MVP.
Who do you see?
Well, that's what happens with the non-quarterbacks. They're going to win NFL Offensive Player of the Year. MVP goes to the quarterback, and the only way he can win it is Brady does not lift the talent around him as he plays. We're expecting as he plays now without Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Leonard Fournette for a little while because all left last night's game with injuries. And then Aaron Rodgers either gets hurt or the Packers really drop off, which is not happening, or the voters just don't vote for him because they hate his stance on vaccinations, which shouldn't happen because he's excellent. And a quick sidebar here. There are those here in Nashville, Dan, who laugh at the thought that Taylor winning MVP shouldn't happen because Derrick Henry didn't get a sniff last season. And they're quick to point out that Taylor needs over 500 yards over the next 3 weeks for his 17 games to match what Henry did in 16 games last year. But here's the thing. For all of those who wanted Henry to be in the running for MVP last year, you should root like heck for a player like Jonathan Taylor to do so, because votes that are for a running back or really any skilled position, they are hard to find, especially when you take away votes for Brady or Rodgers. That said, right now, if I had a vote, it would be for Rodgers. Last 4 games, crunch time, 13 touchdowns, no picks, 1,300 yards passing over those 4 games, a quarterback rating over 127. All 4 of those games are wins for Green Bay. Maybe a couple of weeks from now, my vote would be for Brady based on what he's able to do. But no matter how much I don't want it to be a quarterback, these 2 dudes are just playing too good not to get my vote. And I don't have one. But if I did, as much as I want to see a non-quarterback win it, it's really tough not to vote for one of these 2 guys.
To me personally, Rodgers is the MVP. You know, I mean, again, you mentioned the numbers, 70%, 1,300, 13 touchdowns. No one is, in the most important time of the year. And I watched Brady last night struggle, and, we're creatures of the moment and all that kind of stuff. But do you think I think he'll end up getting it because guys like you, me, and others are talking about the media. Hey, don't do that. You know what I mean? Don't not vote for him because you don't like how he acts.
Yeah. But, for last year, let me compare Jonathan Taylor to Henry for a moment, because this is something I did not see last year. And Henry rushed for 2,000 yards and was just crushing guys down the stretch. Last year, guys, the national media were not retweeting games and saying MVP-like performance. They were doing that on Saturday night for Jonathan Taylor. So I actually think he has more momentum right now than Henry did at this time last year, which is saying something. So credit to Jonathan Taylor. And I'm not one of those who says he doesn't deserve to be in the mix, because I'm all for mixing up the conversation here. But I want him in the mix. Do I want him to win it this year? I wouldn't vote for him because it's too tough not to vote for Aaron Rodgers if it's truly most valuable to your team.
How much do you think Hard Knocks plays into this?
Not much anymore. I mean, I don't
see. I think Taylor's getting a bump because every Wednesday night on HBO they see Hard Knocks, and he's a great dude. Like, he is legitimately a great dude, right? And I can say Derrick Henry's a great dude because of an experience my daughter's friend had with Derrick Henry, and he was the greatest dude ever. But we see it, you know what I mean? We see it week after week, Jonathan Taylor on a big show. I think it matters. I think people are drawn to that.
Well, I mean, I would watch it weekly too if my team were if the team I was covering was on that show, and the Titans have never been on that show.
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot of people talking about that show anymore. And that's the preseason. Like, it's not a point.
What now? They're in the middle of the season they're on.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, I think, the Colts behind the scenes is a great look. Like, I'm tuned in. I'm not watching it live. I used to watch that show religiously live weekly during the preseason. And to me, it's just very stale now. Now, that's not to say this Colts season isn't good, because I watched one episode of it, and it was the episode where he got slimed. Like, there's a personality to him that comes out in that show. I just don't think it's enough to influence voters. Again, because there's a reality show every Saturday, Sunday, or Monday night right now, and the national TV is on the reality show. It's Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, because they're on the main channel here at my house every weekday, just like Jonathan Taylor's on HBO.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't disagree with you. I don't. But all of a sudden I looked at, the leader in the Pro Bowl voting is Jonathan Taylor. I'm like, wait a second. All right, how important is the run game? And we're talking about these quarterbacks. We saw it last night. We saw it yesterday.
Huge. I looked this stat up last night because the Titans just lost another game where they dominated their opponent by running the football. Here's the stat. There have been 154 times this season that a team has rushed for 125 yards or more. Those teams are 105 and 49. That's the record. Running the ball matters. And matters a lot this year because the timing of the run game is predicated on the perfection of your offensive line, which is much more cohesive than the perfection of a passing game right now. And I think it's easier to run the football right now in the league because we've seen the NFL change this season with the way teams are approaching their preparation with injuries, practice time. Week-to-week inconsistencies, to me, are very high right now. We just touched on the AFC. A lot has changed across the landscape of building a team. And the run game can be the rock that teams rely on if they have it. It's huge for first down success and setting you up for second and manageable. Huge for time of possession and controlling games. And just look at the top 7 of rushing teams. Philly, Indianapolis, Baltimore, Cleveland, Dallas, San Francisco, and Tennessee. Those 7 teams are either in the playoffs as of today or they're within one game of getting in. And New England has been a top 5 rushing team over the last 2 months. Dallas has their rushing group back into 2020 form. Yes, it is huge because there are teams right now in the hunt that can't run it consistently, and that's why they're probably not going to make it in the postseason.
What is the word latest on Derrick Henry? Playoffs, maybe? No?
Don't know. It is all quiet here. I mean, the Titans are optimistic, but it's not like they answer questions on it weekly. Rappaport and Schefter, I haven't heard anything from Schefter in a while, but Rappaport had a report a week ago yesterday, where he said that the expectation is, and optimism is, he's going to return for the postseason or could return for a Week 18 game if it were, in effect, an extra postseason game, meaning win and get in. And I don't think the Titans will get there. I don't think that'll be that big of an issue for them to get in the postseason. But, I mean, if they're feeling that way, then, yeah, I mean, that's great news for a team that misses his presence, and especially Tannehill misses his presence. And they're still running at a very high clip, but it's taking a committee of guys to do what he was bringing on the field on first and second down. So they need him, Dan. Are they going to get him back at full strength? Probably not. But even the threat of Henry has a huge impact on games. And we saw him run on a broken foot in Indianapolis, the final game that he played in the regular season. He was still very productive. So I wouldn't put anything past him to show back up and actually put on a show for people out of the backfield, because he will be the bell cow if he's able to play.
The damn turf in Indy got him.
Well, hey, you joke about that for years.
I know.
Teams have talked about, and Indianapolis changed their turf.
They did.
So it's much better. They changed their turf though, and people were complaining every week about the either the soft tissue injuries or the ankle and foot injuries. Same deal goes down in Washington for the opposite reason. The grass there is all chewed up, like a cow pasture, and for whatever reason, there's no real NFL standard other than the fact that if both teams are willing to play on it, they'll go.
Yeah, I've said for years about the Colts practice facility. I think they changed that too. It seemed like every Wednesday. I swear to God, I don't know if this is the same way. Maybe it's just because it's the city that I pay attention to. But I felt like for years, every Wednesday or Thursday, there'd be an injury that came out of the blue. You know what I mean? Like somebody blew their ACL. Like, what are you talking about? They don't even get, but no. Hey,
before I go any further, because there will be fans that laugh at this. I'm not saying that the turf caused the injury. I did bring up the fact, though. I said I found it very ironic that the injury happened on the turf instead of, the week before on the grass. And, I just tied it into the conversation that's been there for years. I think the new Indy turf is fine. And I think that was probably something that was bound to happen at some point this season based on his wear and tear.
Yeah, whether it was Indy or anywhere else. I get it. We both talked about Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Who Give me another guy that you like. You got to lead a team down the field. You got best quarterback, playoff type quarterback.
Lamar Jackson. I mean, we saw it yesterday with Tyler Huntley.
Woo!
But hey, Lamar Jackson, he's able to drive. Watch him all season. I mean, they had the stat up last night of their fourth quarter games where they trail and come back. I mean, the guy gets it done. Now he won his first NFL playoff game last year, so there's still a lot to prove there. But he's a former MVP, and he's a caliber of player this year when he's healthy. Or he's not sick, because the guy's very sickly. He either runs the football very well, which he's expected to do, and this year he's turned it up a notch where they're letting it rip in that offense, throwing the football with some of the passing numbers I was seeing, especially through the first 2 months of the season. So, I want Lamar Jackson running the show after those two guys. And then, in the NFC, Dak Prescott, but I haven't seen the true MVP-like numbers from Prescott over the last couple of weeks. But his defense is going to set him up well in the postseason. That defense is ready. That defense is ready for the playoffs right now, and that's going to mean short fields for Prescott and for Elliott and for Pollard and for that great wide receiving core. He has the weapons around him to do something special.
I like, Kyler Murray disappointed me yesterday. That whole team was just a mess yesterday.
Yeah.
He was another guy that I thought, man, and he's got weapons. All right, we got some hot takes. I'm including everything, okay? Now, bowl season is the best season, and I'm including NFL playoffs. We've got games every day. A lot of people think that March Madness, that kind of thing. I think bowl season is the best time of year for sports.
I'm with you, like, partly on this, because you're including everything. And right now we're not to the part that matters for me. Right now, bowl season is a cool background noise in my house while I do things around the house, or, I work on the show, because you and I today, we are not breaking down Lafayette against Marshall.
No.
Right. Like we probably tuned in a little bit over the weekend. We're not talking about that game. We're not dissecting MTSU Bahama Bowl champion victory, because there's just too much of it.
Didn't you?
Yeah, I went to MTSU. I was glued to it on the laptop Friday. But again, it's not like I expect to discuss it, right? We in this business play the hits. If we're a top 40 radio station, they're playing the hits. These games right now are not hits. There's 42 bowl games with 86 teams that are eligible for bowls this year. I'm glad the games are on TV. I'm not really interested in those games, though. And neither is the vast majority of the country, but not until we get to like next week, where you get to Thursday and then you get to New Year's Eve. But hey, right now, do I prefer the bowls? Do I prefer Lafayette and Marshall to the NBA? Absolutely. Do I prefer the bowls to Jacksonville against Houston? Oh, yeah. You betcha. I'll tune in and watch a bowl game. But, what will really be great, Dan, is when we get to the 12-team playoff. Because if you start to seed these games, we'd be playing those games right now. You had Ole Miss against Oklahoma State, or Georgia against Pitt, or a Utah against Notre Dame. I'm willing to bet that Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker are not going to opt out of those playoff games the way they opted out of the Peach Bowl, because there's nothing special about a random bowl game outside of the local fans getting a chance to watch their team play and sneak out of work to do it. The kids who get to play and get a reward for, a tough, hard-fought, battling 500 or a game above 500 season. And then the coach getting a raise for no particular reason, just because they reached the postseason. I like bowl games. I don't love them until the games that really count.
See, I like games on, I don't care what sport. I like games on at 2 p.m. It makes me feel like I'm skipping school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a weird thing I have in my brain. I like it. Again,
I don't hate it. Some people just absolutely hate the games because it's really hard to predict. It's very difficult to bet these games because you don't know. And that's another aspect of the FanDuel aspect of this that I love. But you don't know who's in it to win it and who's really disappointed to be there or who's opting out. All of that's extremely difficult. But again, like, I'm with you. Like, if it's on the TV, chances are my TV's on it.
Dolphins have been winning, but they ain't making the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah.
I don't think they make it, but I also didn't see them winning 6 straight either. Brian Flores has done a tremendous job with that turnaround. They were 1-7. They're now 7-7 after 6 straight wins. And, you're asking me if they make the playoffs or not. They're not, but it's remarkable in and of itself. I think they cool off. I know they ran it well Sunday with Duke Johnson. It was his first 100-yard rushing performance in 7 years in the league, but they are among the worst teams at running the football. They're a great example of a team that can't do it consistently. And I mean, they're just awful at it. And they cannot stretch the field with Tua throwing the football. It's all short or intermediate routes. My point is they're relatively easy to defend, and they have the Saints, Titans, and Patriots to close out the season. And let's say they beat the Saints. They'll face the Titans on the road, and Tennessee will be coming off of 10 days rest. A.J. Brown should be back in the lineup, and they'll be playing for the opportunity to lock up the division. And then they close out the season with the Patriots, who will be gunning for the number 1 seed and a first-round bye by then. So it's no easy task. Congrats to Miami. They're a great story to end the regular season, but they're not a story for the postseason.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the schedule, because yesterday when I was watching, the guy said, well, this team's a real threat to make the playoffs. So I immediately went and looked at the schedule.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no. I get it. If you got the Jags and the Texans, I understand it. You just say that because they won. That's why I put it in there. Up until this point, I thought the most surprising win was 9-6 Jacksonville over Buffalo. But the score yesterday with the Lions beating the living hell out of the Arizona Cardinals was the most surprising outcome of the year.
Yeah, man. Look, winning is not loyal to any team this season. I love the chaos. I hate the uncertainty, going back to the FanDuel picks on game day, because you don't, again, like we just had the Lions beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals looked like they were in a haze and in a fog on Sunday in Detroit. And Detroit is among the worst teams in the league. But unlike Jacksonville and Houston, I've been saying this for weeks, the Lions play with a little piss and vinegar to them. They are pissed off. Even if those players are collectively not a good team, they come in with an attitude because of their coach. And you can call it antics or whatever he's doing behind the scenes and whether or not he's going to be successful. I mean, the guy's in Detroit, so, may God have mercy on his soul. But the thing I like about the Lions is they're fighting, they're clawing. And the Cardinals played one of their worst games of the year. And when the Lions paired that up with one of their best, the Lions got them and got them easily. I mean, this was not a fluke type game where you had a fumble at the end and they kick a field goal for the win. Arizona has been excellent on the road all season. All of their road wins have been by 10 points or more. And then they ran into Jared Goff, which, believe it or not, is not a quarterback they want to face. He is 8-1 now after yesterday against the Cardinals for his career. He's 4-0 against Cliff Kingsbury. And that is odd, but in a way, it shows what many are concerned with the Cardinals. They are, for the most part, a very young football team. And they're in it now for really the first time. This year, they are what I think the Cincinnati Bengals could be next year, where they're young and they're up and coming. And they have hit now on their 3rd year together because they brought practically everybody back. But again, I think that's bad news for the Colts the coming week, because that Lions loss probably slaps them back into reality a little bit.
Speaking of that, Colts playing better than anybody in the NFL.
No, not better than anybody. I mean, how many weeks are we talking about here, Dan?
8-3 last 11.
Okay.
11. I think it's 11 straight games, double-digit leads. I'm not saying that. I don't know who's playing better. Packers?
No, the Chiefs. The Chiefs are playing better than the Colts. 3 weeks ago, they blew a lead to the Bucs. Last week, and they blew a lead because of their coaching. Last week they beat the awful Texans. This week they played a decent game against the Patriots. Look, they played their brand of football. There were times, though, that Wentz looked as bad as Ryan Tannehill has looked.
That's my next one.
And look, hey, the difference was New England made mistakes like the Titans, and the Colts did not make those mistakes. I mean, otherwise, New England wins on Saturday if they don't make those early mistakes. The Colts Speaking of those leads, you mentioned 11 straight double-digit leads. They had a 14-point lead over the Titans. They lost that back at the start of November at home. And look, I'm not trying to crap all over the Colts here, but I'm just answering: are they playing the best football we've seen? They're a good team. I can't put them in the class with like the Chiefs. New England, in my opinion, still wins a playoff game in January if they match up in Foxborough, because I think the Patriots are more consistent. That's how I would bet that game. The Chiefs, by the way, are on a 7-game roll right now. They're only AFC. I'm thinking they are. They're the only AFC team now with fewer than 5 losses. And they're playing excellent defense, and they have a quarterback that you want the football in the hands of late. So I'm not saying they're elite. No team in the NFL is elite this season. Every team has a flaw. The playoffs are going to be as unpredictable as ever. So if the Colts are in the postseason, they've got a great shot. That's not me saying they don't have a great shot, but they're not playing the best football right now. That goes to the Chiefs in the AFC.
Tannehill stinks.
Oh yeah. And this offense stinks right now. I mean, yeah, he stinks right now. His weapons are really bad. A.J. Brown could return this Thursday night against San Francisco. He's eligible to return. Derrick Henry, we mentioned, could return in the postseason. But hey, it's not all about injuries. As I watch this team, Ryan Tannehill shoulders part of the blame for sure. Derrick Henry broke his foot against the Colts. They proceeded to win 4 straight games after he left the lineup. And then in recent weeks, as a team, they've rushed for 270 yards and 200 yards in losses to the Patriots and the Steelers. Tannehill's not the one turning the football over in those games constantly, but he shoulders part of the blame. Quarterbacks with a rushing attack like this, you don't have to do that much. And he's been excellent in recent years delivering the football. He's been as accurate as any quarterback in the NFL. He's protected the football. And this year, he's tied for the NFL lead in interceptions. He's tied for being sacked the most in the league. He's been sacked 41 times. This is equal blame across the offense right now. His receiving core, they're slow, and they're either inexperienced or they're just not that good. His offensive line, right now, they can't handle the heat of a blitzing defense. His new offensive coordinator is not as good as his old offensive coordinator, and he's not elevating the talent of the players around him. And fair or unfair, the quarterback in this league getting paid $30 million, you're expected to do that. He's getting elite play from his defense, solid, sudden change moments of a game go to the defense. They've had to do a lot of that in recent times. They've turned it over, 13 times over the last 4 games. Tannehill needs A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry back. We've seen what that trio can do together. Right now, look, they're winning if they get those guys back. They're not winning because of Ryan Tannehill, and that's really shown itself over the last month to 6 weeks.
You're the best, my man. That was great stuff. Appreciate you, Jonathan. Thanks.
Enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy Florida. Feel better, and we'll chat with you this week on 360.
Same to you, man. Thanks for the time. Thank you,
man.
Bro.